AI and tech players vying for dominance in the new year may pursue consolidation in the industry. Joining us right now is Chris Kelly, founder of Kelly Investments and former general counsel and chief privacy officer for Facebook. What do
Good
you
morning,
think
Andrew,
happens?
and happy
It's
Christmas,
great to
Adam.
see you, sir. Exactly. Did you know that beforehand about this?
I did not
this
know that
Adam
beforehand,
business?
but I've learned a lot this morning.
News you can use, my friend. News you can use. So help us understand how you see 2026 play out in this AI space, and especially among some of these large language model providers.
So there's going to continue to be a war for talent among the biggest players, and there will probably be some new ones who come to the fore. But more than anything else, there's going to be a drive towards some efficiencies instead of just constantly building more data centers and more GPUs all the time. That obviously the amount that it takes to train a new model is an immense amount of resources in terms of dollars, in terms of GPUs, in terms of power. But I think that there's going to be a lot of companies that turn hard towards how do we do this more efficiently and effectively. And one of the most interesting approaches that's going to be out there is thinking about how the human brain reasons and modeling that better. I mean, we run our brains on 20 watts. We don't need gigawatt power centers to reason. And I think that, that finding efficiency is going to be one of the key things that the big AI players look to.
Is there anybody who you think either drops out of the game or fundamentally changes how they're doing this? I mean, there is a big question about whether you think all of these models get commoditized, especially if you think some of the open source stuff, either coming out of China or elsewhere, really actually catches fire, because it sort of could undermine what some of the other folks are doing.
I mean, I think there will be a number of open source players, most prominently my former colleagues at Meta, who have the Llama models out there. But Mark has invested quite extensively in building a new team, a bigger team, to focus on this. I do think that you'll see a number of Chinese players come to the fore. That especially if the NVIDIA GPUs that are said to be being sold to China now come online.
And when you think about winners and losers, are you of the view we're in some kind of bubble? Are you of the view that it's all going to be fine? Are you of the view that this is just the beginning?
Both. Both is the way that I would put it. I mean, I think that there is a bit of a bubble around, hey, we've got to have this constant upward spiral of more GPUs, more power consumption, more data centers. I think that drive towards efficiency is going to be very real. And those who kind of strike breakthroughs in this area will come to the fore. And I think that some of the bigger players will end up acquiring smaller players that do that breakthrough. And then I do think that you'll see open source models, both out of the China and the US, and some out of Europe too, but mainly out of China and the US, will provide people, basic levels of compute and access for generative and agentic AI.
What is the chance we see in this regulatory environment a major transaction? Now, OpenAI may be too big. I don't know where you think the valuation lands for an Anthropic, for example, which obviously has stakes in it, or ownership stakes by people including Google and Amazon, and now I believe Microsoft as well. Could you see a company try to take out one of the big large language models? I mean, the other piece of this is Apple is not really in the game the way I think they want to be.
Exactly. And they have an incredible cash hoard to deploy, and obviously an acquisition currency in their stock that works pretty well as well. So I do think that you'll see some big deals in the space, particularly as some of these more efficient players come to the fore. If you can take essentially an operating system that you have going on with your LLMs, and think about how to make that a lot more effective and efficient on all the classic tests and coefficients about reasoning, to get to applied general intelligence. Everyone's going to take the opportunity to do that, and to the extent that they have both cash hoards and obviously incredibly valuable stock to deploy, I do think you'll see a few big deals in this space.
But how big are we talking? I mean, so I would say Anthropic would be, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars.
Hundreds of billions, exactly. I don't think we'll get that big. And I think that most of the folks who have achieved, sort of 9-figure valuations or 12-figure valuation are thinking about how they begin to operate on their own. They're going to have to deal with the fact that the resource intensivity of the models operating, it can be a cash bleed, and so eventually they're going to have to come. The big boys are going to have to be profitable at the end of the day and make this work from a revenue perspective as well.